Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very excited about our next speaker here. She is super, super hardcore. A woman for whom I have tremendous respect and admiration. She's come here today, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Chester, Pennsylvania. Got up early just to come out here and talk to you guys, and I know you are going to appreciate what she has to say. She, just this month, is in the middle of launching a new book entitled On Their Own Terms, Animal Liberation in the 21st Century. As an author, she reclaims the terms animal rights, animal welfare, and animal liberation. Her perspective brings an environmentalist's urgency to the development of animal rights philosophy and vegan education, and that is much, much needed, I can assure you. She writes on the importance of habitat in a world coping with climate change and mass extinctions. She is an experienced legal opponent of animal control in national parks and a teacher of animal and environmental law, not to mention a member of the Board of Care, Compassion for Animals, Respect for the Environment, which runs the annual Chester County Vegan Festival in Pennsylvania. In the spirit of the Veggie Pride Parade, Lee is here today to show how our decision not to consume animals does a planet good. So, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for one of the most tireless and indefatigable and passionate animal rights activists you're ever going to meet, Lee Hall.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the organizers for doing this wonderful day and being completely undaunted by the wind, by the high winds. And thank you every single person who was here. We saw costumes that people put a lot of time and effort into. Every single person who is here put time and effort into being here today, regardless of the weather forecast. And that, as Pamela Rice said, is really what we need to do, regardless of what the weather is like, or unless it's really life-threatening. We should do our best to come through, to spread the pure vegetarian message and the respect. Why do we come here? I mean, it's called Veggie Pride. And the reason we come here is because, well, some of us do protests at various times of the year, but this is an occasion we can all take pride and joy in. It's a way to show that we're happy and excited and confident in the decision we've made in our life. Pride and joy in simplifying our lives, cutting out the middle animal, getting our protein directly from plants, allowing other animals to live in their ways and not on our plate, not die for our plates. And every year we come here, we are all volunteers, the speakers are all volunteers as well, and we come here and we don't wish to bore anyone by saying the same thing over and over every year. So sometimes we look to the popular media for inspiration. So I came across Sarah Silverman before coming here. You're familiar with the comedian Sarah Silverman? Oh, good. Sarah Silverman was talking on the Facebook, on the profile page, with a video about candidates who take money from banks and then say they're going to stand up to those same banks. And of course it's legal to take money from corporations, large amounts of money. It's legal under Citizens United, the Supreme Court case that said it was. But as Sarah pointed out, just because it's legal, is it the ethical thing to do when we're talking about the politics of a society, to have it run as a business? Well, everybody's doing it, so we have to do it to compete, and that's the argument. And Sarah said, just because all the sports people take steroids, does that mean that we have to take steroids to compete? And in fact, there's a candidate who's proving you don't have to do it that way. Bernie Sanders is taking, on the average, no more than average $27 from ordinary people, and has raised $10 million. I'm sorry, raised over $100 million, pardon me, over $100 million from 5 million people, averaging only $27 each, which is fabulous. So doing what's right is also achievable. Well, I was listening to this and I was comparing it, I can't help it, to going vegan. Because people say, well, you know, it's not achievable, so why don't you get behind things like local, buy local, do the backyard thing, buy the eggs from the neighbor, and, you know, my neighbor has these chickens and what harm does it do? I'm just eating the eggs and so forth. So wouldn't it be better to promote a less terrible animal farming, because that's the best we can do. That's how the argument goes. Well, I picked up from Sarah Silverman this argument, this very strong statement that we need to think, as a culture, we need to think of what is right. And it is within our reach to achieve what is right. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And again, I'm listening to this and saying, doesn't this all sort of fit together? The idea of how important it is to strive for morals without compromising. The shift to vegan living is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for our planet. Think about this. Now, I know you hear statistics, and they're easily forgotten. Nobody can remember all the numbers of how many gallons of water for a hamburger, and you know, we hear it every year and we never remember it. But I will say this, that the average meat eater in the United States is responsible for nearly 3 times the greenhouse gases that the average vegan is responsible for. And I think that's a pretty easy thing to remember, that a vegan is 3 times less an emitter into our environment. What about buying local? Is that a good argument that we should buy local? You know, one thing that people don't talk about when they talk about their backyard chickens? They don't talk about the reality that 99% of suburban and backyard chicken farmers buy commercial feed. They go to the retail store and they buy the feed. They drive to the retail store to buy the feed. The feed comes from Canada and the Midwest. It has to be transported to be aggregated and mixed and bagged, and then it's shipped to retail stores. So there's a lot of fossil fuel involved in this locavore, the idea that you have your own animals local to the restaurant or local in the backyard. It's a very, actually, not the way to go. It's not a step in the right direction. Cows, I live in Pennsylvania, a little bit to our west, is, in fact, as I was coming up to New York, lots and lots of dairy farms, lots and lots of cows. In the summer, a cow will drink 4 times as much liquid as that cow will produce for the dairy farm. It's highly, highly inefficient. Cows in summer drink a lot. What about eating fish? What about eating fishes? Would that be okay? Well, Mary Finelli of Fishfield will tell you there's a morality problem there because fish do indeed feel. But as far as energy use, no, it's not okay. Eating fish is equivalent to eating cows in terms of energy use. So no, so there is really, you know, Confucius said, the way out is via the door. Why is it no one will use this method? New York. I'll bring this to what we've just heard in the news recently about the sea level rise in New York. Because when we're talking about emissions and we're talking about food and how important we are by what we do and do not eat, we're talking about sea level rise. Why? Because global warming, which is caused by emissions, melts the ice caps. How much sea level rise are we talking about? The new projections And now, these are the scientists who presented them. This is New York State funded. The scientists are working at Columbia University, Cornell University, and Hunter College, and it's called the Climb Aid Study. And they projected by the year 2100 a range of anywhere from 15 inches of sea level rise to 75 inches. My goodness, folks, it's not like we have until 2100 to be concerned about this. This is happening now. That's how we get that kind of sea level rise. What that does to utility plants, to power plants, what that does to human lives is we are facing a crisis. We need to know this. The northeast of all of the country, the Northeast has had the highest increase in rainfall coming down in superstorms. So it's a 70% increase, higher than any other place in the nation. The Northeast is basically the superstorm region now. And you're also talking about animals to whom this area is home. Long Island Sound, the Hudson River estuaries, key places for birds, other animals. So, you know, if you were to shift from an omnivore's diet, from what's called the standard American diet, and you were to shift, and you were to decide to go, and I say decide because I don't really think it's a choice. I think we need to do this. We need to respond to do what's ethically and environmentally right. So I don't call it vegan options. I call it vegan offerings. We're generous folks. We're here because we love the earth. We love other human beings. And we love other animal communities within our greater bio community. So we're making a decision. Not so much a choice as a decision. We're not choosing options so much as offerings. And if one person were to make that decision, they would save the equivalent of not driving 8,000 miles a year. It would be like they weren't driving a whole 8,000 miles a year. That's a number you can remember. 8,000 miles a year in a car is more than I drive. It's a pretty big number. You can do that, but it takes cutting out all animal agribusiness, not just factory farming, all animal agribusiness. I have 4 paragraphs to read, if I may. This is from my new book. It's called On Their Own Terms, Animal Liberation for the 21st Century. It just came out. This is a proof. So it's now orderable. You can go online and look for the Wolf Book. And today it's cold. So I wrote in the postscript. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you. I will read you the postscript, which happened around the holiday season. Because it's cold, you can kind of get into this and have the feeling I had. This is around the holiday season, and a couple of friends, Monica and Jeff, from Cleveland, Ohio, let me know that they would be in town for a visit, and we decided to meet in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It was the eve of the winter solstice, and Vegan Treats Bakery was decked out in a festive mood, complete with snowflake biscuits and reindeer cakes and gift package cupcakes, and we exchanged hugs with each other and with strangers. Not everyone buying pastries was vegan. Indeed, most weren't. They told us they were simply coming to the very best bakery they'd ever found. There's something almost magically beautiful in knowing the best and most loved of any art merges so well with the striving for liberation and peace. The gift cards for the boxes were designed with an image of a polar bear, and the message, "May all beings know peace this holiday season." A genuine peace would stop destabilizing the Earth's poles. leave them safe for polar bears, Arctic foxes, walruses. And this bakery, in its way, is doing better than any team of climate scientists I've come across yet. Most scientists, after all, are not living in accordance with what their findings tell them. If they did, they'd get on board with the protein shift, as they put it, to plant foods. The shift which would spare the atmosphere the equivalent of 8,000 driving miles every year per person. That's no talking point. It's what every climate-conscious human being ought to be taking to heart. En route 476 to Bethlehem, I saw the ventilated vans on the way to slaughter. And here I was, about to eat vegan Boston cream donuts. I saw a sign declaring my tax dollars were at work, widening an already massive stretch of concrete and barriers and pavement, welcoming so many more motorists and defacing the Earth's surface that much more. Some days I wonder if it's one step forward, two steps back. Some days I wonder if there is any way to be a human being and to nurture my integrity. I'm dazed. Functioning amidst so much undoing of the world by my kind, still there is a lot of ground for hope, and local growers, enterprises, and arts, yes, like vegan chalk art, are making a good showing and inspiring the rest of us to try. There's no reason to give in, comes the message from these dedicated people. Upon returning home, I heard all about the presidential candidates' debate, all of the talk about how to control the world. And then Robin, the vegan who inspired me to become one too, it was 32 years ago, sent a video of Yoko and John. War is over if you want it. And it hit me that this communication is much more powerful in the unfolding scheme of things, like the pianist who cycled towing a piano to the Bataclan concert hall in Paris after all the people were killed and started playing Imagine. Love is a much more splendid work than slamming something down. Never stop loving.
Ladies and gentlemen, please keep it going for Lee Hall. What an amazing person. So Lee, I basically want to be you when I grow up, just so you know.